let me put my timer. So how does this work? Forward. Okay. Hi everyone, how are you? Francisco Pallares, pleasure to be here. I'm sorry to break the chain. I'm not a New Mexico born, raised. I'm actually adopted by the state of New Mexico, right? I call myself a border person, right? I actually grew up in Ciudad Juárez. I was born in El Paso, and Las Cruces has always been there. Las Cruces, contrary to what the common belief is about that brain drain that everyone discusses in New Mexico, I'm a brain gain to the state of New Mexico, right? People that are coming over from other places and are staying here and are leaving everything here. So New Mexico has great things, right? And not just because New Mexico State University is located in Las Cruces, Go Aggies, and we have about Spaceport America. So Spaceport America has traditionally, I mean, and to me, I got late into this game, right? A very controversial topic in the state of New Mexico, right? Which is curious enough because outside of the state of New Mexico, it is not controversial at all. It's actually a place that individuals look after, right? And they're like, so how did you guys do it? How did it work? What were the expectations? What were some of the things? And you have no idea how many instances and how many countries have come to us to discuss how did you guys do it, right? How did you guys come up with a facility like that? But I mean, history, right? History, addressing the elephants on the room, right? So let me see if I can make this work. There we go. So New Mexico Spaceport Authority is the agency. It's a state agency. I'm an employee of the state of New Mexico. Actually, we work under the administratively attached is the technical term to the Economic Development Department of the state of New Mexico. We have 4 major missions at the New Mexico Spaceport Authority. The first one and the original one was developing the infrastructure for creating a spaceport, which is now created. The second one was operating that, right? Actually, no, the second one is one of the major ones that I take care of, is creating the environment or the circumstances to develop an aerospace business cluster, as we call in economics, a cluster, right? A group of industries that is able to develop in this specific sector, in this specific area, right? So in the aerospace area for the state of New Mexico. The third one was for carrying the operations of the spaceport. And the fourth one also falls a little bit under my umbrella, which is the development of workforce, specifically aimed at workforce in New Mexico, developed for serving the aerospace industry. And the reason for it is plenty, right? Not just from the discussion that like to blow things up, right, a little bit. But it's the perspective that the space economy is welcome here, right? And this is very typical, and these are things that are not always well received. I don't know if you've heard or are aware of some of the news. There were some discussions right there at the northern side of the northern eastern side of the country that they wanted to open a spaceport, and the folks from the regional area were not amicable to it, right? Whereas in here, we're like, yeah, we're pretty used to knowing that there's going to be rockets and missiles and things that are going to be going up. And we are used to the defense industry, and we're used to dealing with contracts that are very long-term, and we're used to having all of those discussions in place because we have an environment of individuals that are prone to these types of perspectives. So with that said, so the New Mexico Spaceport Authority has those 4 major aspects. Let me see if I can, there we go. But not all spaceports are created equal, okay? Some spaceports, or what they're called spaceports, they just technically have a license from the FAA to be called spaceports. That does not necessarily mean that you can launch out of there. The challenge that many of these spaceports have is precisely that they cannot put a rocket and launch it because they're very next to an urban area, right? So the FAA would not probably approve any of those spaceports to launch anything from them. So just to give you a perspective, right, we have very good relationship with the folks from Midland or with the folks from Oklahoma, right? So they have spaceports themselves. And when you go and talk to them, it's like, well, how many launches have you had this year? And their response is none, right? So it is maybe more along the lines of what you would consider to have an industrial park that is dedicated to the aerospace industry, more or less, but technically they have the denomination of a spaceport. So a spaceport, right, like in the case of Spaceport America, it is an inland spaceport, right, which poses its own challenges, particularly sending orbital rockets, right? So that there's challenges for how do we launch from an inland spaceport, something that goes orbital because of the boosters and how it falls back. So then that basically puts us in different categories. The main ones or the main players in the spaceport arena are the Cape Canaveral, Wallops, Vandenberg. So those are the main players, the main key players for sending things orbital in the United States. Nevertheless, right, there has been a constant discussion about the resiliency from the Space Force about how do we make some inland spaceports capable of launching orbital, right? And that is one of the key factors in how to launch from an inland spaceport to an orbital distance, right, in a safe manner. I mean, technically there is currently one vehicle that could do that, right, that has the boosters coming back to a very accurate back location. Right now the challenge is, of course, if you launch to an orbital one and you're in let's say at the Cape, the boosters fall out, right, and they can drop in water, so nothing happens, right? And even though Spaceport America is very remotely located and it's 18,000 acres, well, it's pretty remotely located, but at 600 kilometers up, right, or maybe more than that, then those 18,000 acres look like this, correct? So then returning back from some of those boosters can pose potential challenges for whichever urban areas are surrounding it. So most of the things that we launch at Spaceport America, actually currently all of the things that we launch out of Spaceport America are suborbital. So that means that they go up and they come back. So that's where we partner substantially with White Sands Missile Range. So we're completely adjacent, located just as Westif, right, with White Sands Missile Range, and we have an agreement with them to use their airspace and be able to launch things and be able to restrict the airspace. Well, the airspace is already restricted, right? It belongs to DoD because it belongs to White Sands, but then we just coordinate with them in when we launch and when we don't launch some of those things. I need to start moving ahead. So as you can see it from right there, Spaceport America, one of the best advantages, which you would not believe, is the fact that we're remote. So we're far enough that we can do some of these activities and there's absolutely no one around it. A couple of cows, a couple of ranchers, right? But then we're also so close to some of the major urban areas that it allows us to drive up and bring workers, bring individuals, bring customers, bring food if we wanted to do so, right? So the closest city is actually TRC, to their consequences, right? Originally called proximity to El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, right? As I was mentioning to you. So we also have some of those phenomena taking place. So from here, you can see that White Sands is that huge blue area right there, and the little orange portion, that's where we're technically located within the airspace. So White Sands allows us to use a chunk, a portion of their airspace, R5111, in order to do some of our activities, and that's the one that we typically use, right? So it does not mean that the other areas are necessarily out of, well, yeah, that's probably most of it, right? All of the other areas are probably, unless it's a DoD type of mission, White Sands would allow us to use that airspace, and that typically comes from their side, right? So whenever they have to do something like that, they say like, oh, by the way, do you mind if we use some of your facilities to do some of the other things that we need to do in the larger areas? So there's access to radar, telemetry, optics, all of that you have right in there, and you can see this. But this is a fun presentation, right? This is not a technical presentation. So I like graphs because I have a deformation as an economist, right? So my deformation as an economist like pushes me to do graphs and do analysis like that. So from this perspective, this image that you have right here at front tells you about the space economy, and this comes from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the BEA. And the BEA, when they release this information, it tells you that the space economy is about $500 million in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, right? So a couple of years ago. But the expectation of this economy, at least to Morgan Stanley's standards, is that by 2040, and that's not very far away, this is going to turn into a $1 trillion economy, correct? And if this does turn into a $1 trillion economy, it makes us very, very relevant to being located in a place that has all of the different amenities if we count ourselves as the entire state, and it's going to be us that we can start counting as our partners. So New Mexico is the place for space, right? That's the very first image that I wanted to show you. And I really like this image, this slide right here, because it shows you all of the different partners that we have located in our space, all of the major institutions that we have located in here that have great aerospace, mechanical engineering, all of those programs. And we put UTEP in there because they're kind of New Mexico as well, right? So yes, New Mexico is the place for space, but guess what? The space economy is not only happening in New Mexico, right? This slide right here shows you the aerospace industry clusters in Mexico, right? And guess what? Mexico does not have a spaceport. Currently, the manufacturing that happens in Mexico and all the reshoring that is happening from China and some of the other places into the North American sector is probably manufacturing in Mexico, right? So as you can see, New Mexico, pop quiz, New Mexico makes border with which Mexican state? Chihuahua, good. So the state of Chihuahua right there has an aerospace cluster located in Chihuahua City. And actually there is a very close connection between the drive to Chihuahua City, you exit, you don't go all the way into Juarez, you exit and then you come into New Mexico through the border of Santa Teresa, right? Which is the New Mexico jewel of manufacturing currently. So there are connections to be had elsewhere. Guess what? Another one. Currently located immediately adjacent to us, right? Putting a lot of money into the aerospace sector. Currently hosting two of the major companies in the sector, right? SpaceX and Blue Origin. And Blue Origin is just about a couple of hours away on their launching site out of El Paso. And so, and the reason why I selected that one, that's just a clip that I selected, and you can see that El Paso has like 1,200 individuals employed in the aerospace sector. So yes, New Mexico is a place for space, but unless we are the Cape or Florida that has the ability to launch, to do the research, to do everything, the manufacturing, everything themselves in that single place, we need to partner and we need to start looking elsewhere. And we need to do other things and say, what is Mexico doing? What is Texas doing? What is Colorado doing? And what are we doing so that we can, amongst ourselves, push to the noticing, right? There is a lot of opportunity if we start opening up a little bit more elsewhere as well, right? So from this perspective, New Mexico has the Space Valley, which actually Miguel mentioned very nicely, right? The Space Valley that goes all the way, perhaps from Los Alamos, maybe from Colorado, and all the way to El Paso, or maybe all the way to Van Horn, right? Why is it that we have to be closing ourselves to the opportunities that we may have if we can collaborate, if we can step a little bit further from just this New Mexico perspective that we can have, right? So New Mexico has an opportunity to connect and grow from Los Alamos to El Paso. This Space Valley coalition that we're discussing is to complete the aerospace ecosystem, right? Speaking about clusters, how can we coordinate so that we can leverage on each other's benefits rather than seeing ourselves necessarily as competitors, right? So this is possible through all of the different things. So uniquely, the region has an active spaceport, which has many of these activities already in place as well. So more detail along the spaceport in itself. Some of the activities, my boss, Scott McLaughlin, he couldn't make it today, but he loves pictures. I like graphs, he likes pictures. So he told me to put a bunch of pictures in front and then like detail what each one of those are. So did anybody see the game for the Super Bowl? Yes? Because of Taylor Swift or because of the actual game? Good, okay. So the Thunderbirds actually practice on their winter training at Spaceport America, right? So the Thunderbirds, on the demonstration they did during the Super Bowl, they trained that at Spaceport America. So it is very cool. It is very loud. I never expected it would be that loud. Very loud. On the other picture right there, you have some students looking at some of the rockets located. Sorry, I need to start jumping. Yes, a lot of activity. You have Virgin Galactic, and you have some Business development, right? In terms of business development, one of the things that we're currently working on is on a reentry license. I do not know how many of you heard about that capsule that was circulating around the Earth and was looking for a place in which it can land, right? Technically, if we had had a reentry license, right, we could have maybe sit down and discuss and look at an area in which we could have done. We're currently working in our reentry license. So that would actually allow us to start discussing with some of these folks that have, well, we already started discussing with them, but further discussing with these folks so that those activities can be done in here. We're recruiting a satellite communications company to be located at the spaceport. We continue to have this lead development and to continue to bring in more tenants at the spaceport and more customers, right? Tenants are more of a permanent basis. Customers come in and they test periodically and they come in, out, and things of that nature. Also, we sign different MOUs with different regional partners. And again, this was with the effort of, okay, let's start talking. We are gonna be the connectors of the different things that are going on amongst ourselves. So we signed an MOU with Borderplex Alliance, MERVDA, which is the Middle Rio Grande Economic Development Alliance right there in Socorro County, and also with Mavira in Doña Ana County, so that we can continue to have these aspects all together. Some of our current tenants, right? Actually, Dex Halpin, I don't know if he's around. Dex, are you somewhere? Dex? No? Okay. Well, Dex Halpin, he's going to be talking a little bit later. He has this, he works for AV, for Air Environment, and they're one of our tenants at the spaceport. So this is one of the picture of one of their vehicles. We have actually turned quite popular for high altitude platform systems. They really like the restricted airspace. And the nice thing is that since White Sands owns the airspace, these folks are actually capable of testing and all of their parameters before they even submit their licensed vehicle to the FAA. So we have had actually some of the high altitude platform systems, some people call them high altitude pseudo satellites, right? Because it's kind of like a satellite. It's like goes up and it stays. All of those wings are completely filled with solar panels, and they go up and they come down. Another one of our tenants, Prismatic, that one was purchased by BAE Systems from the British Aerospace Engineering Systems, I think it's what they are. They also have a drone located right there at Spaceport America, and they conduct operations regularly at Spaceport America. Another one is, you probably heard of this one, right? Somewhere. So Virgin Galactic, right, they have flown 6 times out of the spaceport. The next one is expected to be kind of like in the middle of the year currently, and then they're expected to do a focus on their development of their Delta class. But besides the tenants that we have constant requests for testing for other tenants, for this, all multiple sorts of things, from using the runway for tire testing to using some of our other facilities for battery testing, for different things like that. So we have put up a front gate. Let me just move into the 4th mission that we have, which is the STEM and the outreach. As we mentioned, the 4th mission of the spaceport is the development of workforce. So we do constant visits from students, right? And telling them that there's a place for them in the aerospace industry. The only thing I always start with is, I am an econ major. I didn't study engineering. I didn't study any of that. I am an econ major. Some of the people are sociology majors, right? Finance majors. The aerospace industry has a place for all of them. And besides that, we have Spaceport America Cup, which you are well familiarized with, and you're more than happy to attend. African team participated in the Cup. There was a team from Algeria that participated in the Cup. So what that has turned into is a recruitment event. Think about it like this. You have la creme de la creme of all the kids that are about to graduate, that know about aerospace, that love rockets, that love engines, that all of them working on their own rockets themselves, all gathered in the same spot. Right? So if you're looking for a place to hire, if you're Blue Origin, of course you want to be there, right? You want to have direct contact with them because that is your pipeline. So it has turned a little bit into that, actually. So the last year's lead sponsor was Blue Origin. This year's lead sponsor is actually going to be Onshape. On chip, as soon as we opened up, they were like, we want to be the lead ones because they see this as very, very beneficial to them. With that said, I'm sorry for taking too long of your time, but I'm open to any questions, and my email is listed right there. And if you don't find me, Celicia and also Fred right there, raise your hands, guys. They're also with the Spaceport, so you can bother them. But I'm saying, go ahead. Yes.
What you guys did. I have a loud voice. I don't know if you hear, man. So my name is Ralph Mims. I'm from Rio Community. So my family's from Antigua and Barbuda. So they had a watch party on our island. And a lot of these people never heard of New Mexico. So basically, really put New Mexico out there. They had a big watch party. These two, daughter and mother team went up into space. I guess they won the contest through through Richard Branson. So that was just wonderful. You know, suborbital, New Mexico's watch party, and then I would love to go up there, but I can't afford it. So I don't. Very expensive, I'm pretty sure.
It is. I can't afford it either. There are no discounts or anything like that. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Amazing. The one thing we didn't get a chance, and what I said was this last year I went with New Space New Mexico, took a bus down to the spaceport. And if you haven't gone, go, because it's pretty incredible. And they do a fabulous job of taking you around. You guys are PR experts at that for sure. But I'm just curious, the one thing we didn't get to see was the kinetic energy. How is that coming along in terms of its technology and its future?
Specifically, I think you're referring to spin launch, right?
Yes.
Yes, spin launch is developing still. I think that they're still paying the rent. They're still continuously engaged with the spaceport. But I think they're probably looking into how they can turn that. I mean, it's a super giant centrifuge, right? More of that currently as their business model, right? Different ways in which they can use that as their business model. Yes, so that they haven't launched yet. They haven't launched this year so far, but they are still, as I mentioned, re-establishing how they can reuse some of that for their business model.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.